Well, hello everybody. I'm really glad to see everybody and see a lot of people that I know and people I don't know. So, yeah. So,
Speak into the mic.
oh,
Use the
whoops.
mic,
Oh,
please.
sorry. God, I'm not used to doing that.
You can straighten it a little taller.
Oh,
You're tall.
hello. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for coming. Hello everyone. Glad to see all of you. As she said, I'm Mara Thygeson. I'm going to read a few excerpts from my noir, which is half part fiction, part memoir. And just wanted a little thing to say is that it's been really challenging. Originally, The Land of Laughing Porpoises was 744 pages. I have chopped it down to 474 and am going to be chopping even more. So, like she said, she gave a really great introduction there. In this book, I am Ruth Turjank. My mother, Zelda Gold, is a single mother of 3, short on money, high on tension, and getting a PhD in literature at UC Berkeley. So, and it was a very difficult, troubled home. I'll just say that much, and more will be revealed. So, I was very eager to get out of that house as quickly as possible, and it was a great fortune that opened up when the Prochanskis, the Bohemian family in Bolinas, needed a housekeeper cook, although I didn't know how to cook, but I learned. And soon after I met Mark O'Leary there, and it was his 3rd time getting out of juvenile hall. I had a real thing for the bad guys. The Prochanskis, the family I worked for, allowed us to live together in a small one-room house next door. My mother, of course, knew nothing about this. We lived together most of the school year, and then due to a crisis, I was forced to move back to my Berkeley home the end of junior year. My mother hated Mark, slammed the door in his face the first time he tried to visit. He camped out in my best friend's playhouse around the corner. And so to get into this excerpt I'm about to read, Antoine was my 15-year-old brother, and Lisa, my 7-year-old sister, from Zelda's 2nd ex-marriage to Fred. And if you can't figure that out, join the crowd. I have the distinction of being, both my parents were married and divorced 3 times. And I'm now 43 and a half years in my first marriage with my husband. So anyhow, soon after I returned home, my mother tried to kill me. Mark and I decided to run away to Canada and get married. So we worked, saved money. He did demolition at construction crews. I babysat at 50 cents an hour. For weeks, I packed and hid boxes of my belongings under the house. And then to throw Mother off our trail, I told her I got a counselor job for 2 weeks at Camping Unlimited in the Santa Cruz Mountains. So what I'm about to read is an excerpt from chapter 25, the summer of 1969, right before I turned 17. Kids, I got tickets for us to see Fiddler on the Roof Friday night, Zelda said. Antoine, Lisa, and I were in the breakfast nook, eating French toast with butter and maple syrup. Zelda sipped black coffee. The Chronicle hails it as good as Broadway. Friday is perfect, I thought. The next day, I'm supposed to take the Greyhound to Camping Unlimited. While we're at the play, Mark can load the car with my boxes. Sitting with my family in the dark balcony, I was so keyed up, I practically levitated. The play's musical theme of freedom paralleled my own. My knees tingled. I felt ridiculously happy and sad, too. I'd miss my mother's loving sigh. Early the next morning, I stood on the oriental rug in her study. She sat in an armchair, reading The Golden Bowl, and looked up. Could you give me a ride to the Greyhound bus depot in Oakland? I counted on her saying no. She smiled. So, you'll be at Camping Unlimited, a great opportunity to clear your head. She marked her place and said brightly, "Dear, I'm terribly busy preparing." "I know, Mom, I understand." I kissed her cheek. "See you in 2 weeks." This is the last time I'll ever see you, I thought. Tears welled. I memorized the yellow sun leaking through the windows on the burnt sienna floor. Mother's porcelain teacup was painted in fuchsia and blue. A matisse of a mother and child framed her gold hair. "Aw, sweetie, it's just a short time. You'll be back soon." "I know, Mom." I waved. "See you in 2 weeks." Zelda opened her Henry James novel. "Call me collect as soon as you arrive." Outside, the fresh air invigorated me. Hefting my heavy pack over my shoulders, I ran down the block to Mark. His muscled arms crossed his Jimi Hendrix t-shirt as he leaned against our white, beat-up $100 car. "Ready to start our new life?" he grinned. I loosened the straps of my pack and let it fall, pressed close to him and inhaled his woodsy smell, my mouth feverish on his. He picked up my pack and heaved it in the back seat. He opened the rusty trunk. My boxes of books, writing, and clothes were neatly stacked. My easel was placed diagonally like a wooden cross. Mark nudged my elbow. "Look in the back seat." His Gibson guitar was next to my flute case, along with his fishing rod and tackle box. The seat was filled with camping equipment and satchels of food. His green eyes glowed. "Baby, we've got everything we need. This will last us a month till we get jobs." My arm linked through his as we drove out of Berkeley. Buildings and cars flew by in the flickering sun. Our plan was to avoid the main highway and drive up the coast to Canada. We wound through hairpin turns over Mount Tamalpais, past the zigzag trail, and down to Stinson Beach. The sea glittered in the distance. Mark frowned. "Uh-oh." Up ahead, cars were stopped, and several black and white police cars were parked by the road. Cops were checking the vehicles at the front of the line. "What is it, Mark?" "Oh my God, did Mother find out about us?" "It's the Highway Patrol safety check on brakes, tailgates, and turn signals. This piece of junk won't pass inspection." He slowed down the car. We were a half mile from the line. "Oh, what will we do?" Mark's brows were taut. He put his right elbow over the seat, looked behind, no cars coming, and backed up into a turnaround space. "We'll go over the mountain and come down on the other side, miles ahead of the cops." He flashed a lopsided grin as he whipped the car around. "Don't worry, baby. I know this old road where nobody goes." We drove in electric silence to the mountaintop and down a side dirt road. Light dappled through the trees. A canopy of greens arched over us as we went around turns, our windows dusty with dirt. To the right, an ultramarine lake rippled between dark trunks. The grin on Mark's face expanded as he drove with one hand and held mine with the other. Heading down the mountain, when we came out at Green Gulch Ranch, 5 miles past Stinson, he bounced on the frayed seat. "Left those pigs behind." "Yes, we did." He threw back his head and bellowed. "Wild and free, you and me." Driving past Point Reyes and Inverness, we cruised up a crest overlooking Bodega Bay. White sailboats dotted the blue sea under cerulean skies. "Honey, let's fill the tank here and you can call your ma. It's been over two hours, about the time it'd take you to take your bus to Santa Cruz." "Bodega Bay is where The Birds was filmed. It's bad luck, Mark." He shook his head. "Don't be silly. That's just an old Hitchcock movie. I've got to clean the windows. They're so grimy I can barely see." My spine prickled. I could see birds pecking people's eyes out. "No, Mark, please, wait till the next town." He chuckled and pulled into the Shell station. "Go call your ma so she won't freak out." He got out and walked to the pump. I pinched coins from my pocket. The payphone was inside the glassed office. I slipped a dime in the slot and dialed O. "Hi, Mom, it's me. Got here safe and sound." I tried to keep the anxiety out of my voice, but the words punched high. Blood pounded in my ears. I barely heard what she said. After a reasonable amount of chit-chat about how beautiful the Santa Cruz Mountains were, I said, "Bye, Mom, see you in 2 weeks." "Operator, where is this call coming from?" "Bodega Bay, ma'am," the woman said politely. "Bodega Bay!" I dropped the receiver with Mother's voice shrieking through the wires. Attached by a long silver coil, the phone bounced and clanked against the glass booth as Mark twisted the gas cap back on. "Mark, she knows we're here. Hurry, we gotta split." Lightheaded and sweaty with panic, I almost choked. "Hold on, babe," he said, reaching for his wallet. He turned to the gawky, young gas station attendant with pink acne across his forehead. The attendant stared at me. "She's just upset. Little mother-daughter hassle," Mark said, his voice cool as he handed the man $3. In the background, Zelda's voice screeched through the receiver. Mark strolled over to the phone and hung it up. He got in the car, waved nonchalantly at the bug-eyed attendant, and waved as we drove away. Once out of sight of the station, he punched the gas pedal to 80 and roared past Amber Hills. The late afternoon sky reflected on the ocean in shards of white. I told him about the call. For a minute we debated turning back, huddled close, our hands clasped. We drove around each turn, anticipating cop cars, speeding over the crest any second with blasting sirens. We drove in sharp silence, afraid these were our last moments together, mile after mile in acute tension, coated in acidic smells of sweat and fear. I held my breath at every switchback. We drove past Jenner by the Sea, a town on rolling hills, and Mendocino as sunset fired on the horizon, the sea blackish blue. No cops appeared. My shoulders relaxed, and Mark's hand loosened around mine. I smiled weakly, exhausted, as if I'd lifted the car and carried it up hills for miles. Shortly after nightfall, Mark pulled into a narrow dirt road and told me it was where he camped his first time on the run. Later, snuggled in thermal sleeping bags zipped together, bellies full from turkey, cranberry cream cheese sandwiches, I wondered why Mother didn't call the police. His warm thigh pressed mine. Crickets chirped through the night. So that's the first excerpt. This next one is from chapter 47, and just to get you guys a little warmed up, this is a whole new, we've gone from summer of 1969, now we're in this late spring of 1973. Celeste Prochansky is the woman that I lived with, her family in Bolinas. And Mark had disappeared almost 2 years ago at this point. I desperately believed he was still alive. I was hoping he was in some type of amnesia or something. And I was a student at UC Berkeley. It was my third college. I was a restless person. So now the excerpt begins. At the end of May, Celeste invited me to a writer's retreat in her home with her College of Marin creative writing class. At the gathering, I met Hudson, the teacher, a short, handsome man with a goatee and a jaunty manner, and 11 young people jabbering about Bob Dylan, Fellini, and Kerouac. I talked a bit with Jenna, who was my age, matchstick thin, with large breasts and straight blonde hair to her waist. She made wisecracks about the group. I thought she was stuck up. While the group sat in the living room eating lasagna and guzzling wine, I ran to Sunset Cliff and wrote poetry, drunk on cloud angels in the sky. That night, the writers camped on the beach. I stayed at the house happily reading The Cloud of Unknowing. The next morning, Celeste recited the night's highlights. A bonfire, students drunk on Red Mountain wine, and Hudson took Jenna further up the beach with their sleeping bags. Didn't seem like much of a writer's retreat, so I went downtown and ran into Frankie, my old pal from Mount Tamalpais High. He said he saw Mark drive into town on a Harley Davidson a month ago. I asked him if he was sure. He said yes. Hope flamed. Early evening, when I got back to the house, a note said they were all downtown at Smiley's Bar and the beach. I ransacked the fridge and sat at the table, gnawing a chicken, drumstick in hand, my mouth smeared with grease. Jenna walked in and surprised me. Shoulders hunched, snuffling, she said, "They're getting crazy drunk. I'm sick and going to bed." Noticing her red eyes, I motioned her over. Within minutes, she was weeping. "He said I was beautiful, a gifted writer. I fell for it and bawled him, thought it was love. Now the bastard's humping Renee, saying the same goddamn lines to her." She cocked her fingers into a gun and pointed it at her head. Stupid me. I giggled and put my arm around her. "Sister, I got burned twice by an ex-Hell's Angel cokehead." Jenna smiled through her tears. The door banged open as a herd of crazy writers burst in. A heavy kid with his belly flopping over his belt bellowed gibberish and galloped around the room, knocking chairs over. Jenna and I huddled at the back of the room, watching the hullabaloo. Finally, the crazies passed out on the floor. Jenna nabbed a pack of Pall Malls. We went into the bathroom and sat on the floor in the yellow light, smoked the whole pack, and talked until 5 a.m. Beads of connection strung between us. Love of God, literature, and writing. Turned out Jenna was transferring to UC Berkeley summer term. I offered her my room to crash until she found a place. Time moves on. Jenna got a room in a boarding house on Regent Street. We spent hours in her room upstairs creating phrases like "heroes of the unicorn" and "beware the blank wall." We were the heroes of the unicorn. Rare, delicate creatures. Blank wall was the disaster of conforming to the establishment and becoming mediocre. We got stoned and spent dreamy afternoons romping through Berkeley streets, sat on people's curbs, smoking Marlboro Lights, giggling and yakking. Inseparable, we grew wings in each other's minds. I lifted the veil over the dark cave of Mark's disappearance. More than any of my other friends, Jenna got it. The dark side of the moon edged away. She felt the same as me, trembling fears as we groped our way from magical fantasy into RW, the real world. The massive issue of how much of our true selves we'd lose doing that. When I suffered fits of anxiety and self-condemnation as November 11th, the second anniversary of Mark's disappearance, closed in, Jenna stroked my hair. "Rue, it's not your fault. Let's go to Edie's Ice Cream and get Dutch Girls, my treat." Every day we chatted on the phone or met, lots of cappuccinos at the Renaissance Cafe, cheering each other up with loony ideas like missions for the heroes of the unicorn, have a party for our cats, which was ridiculous as Jenna didn't have one. She became my lifeline, the one person I wanted to speak to. Our phone code was ring once, hang up, and ring again. Bonded by perennial despair, we were the Depression Sisters. When she received notice the house on Regent sold and tenants evicted, she hooked her arm through mine and twirled me in a rumba move. "Let's live together, cha-cha-cha." My spirits lifted. My basement studio had become a dungeon. The family above fought a lot and galloped up and down the stairs outside my bedroom window. Going to the laundromat alone, watching couples kiss and fold, drove me back to bed for hours watching aimless TV. I called it the sport of curl up and give up. The objective of the game was to think positively while playing it. Jenna doubled over in hysterics when I told her. We mapped out our search process and ordained our apartment would be the second one we looked at on the fourth day. A silly thing we came up with, eating lunch at a Mexican restaurant on Telegraph. The problem was, we believed it. The second day of hunting took us to Ayala, a meandering street miles from campus. Tiny, with tiny bedrooms and no closet. We knew it was impossible. Plus, it was on the wrong day. On the long walk back, Jenna said, I wasn't cut out for this world. I didn't walk until I was 18 months old. Just sat in my chair, talking and entertaining people. I didn't see any reason to get out of that chair. And now, here we are, her arms spread wide, in the wasteland of Ayala Street. And 2 days later, we moseyed through the Dwight Way apartment, determined not to see the long, dark hallway, the peeling linoleum kitchen floor, and the rust-stained ceiling. It was the second one on the fourth day, borderline insane, intent on the pattern, despite the neon inequity of one large light-filled bedroom and one small dark room and 2 college boys moving out who warned us this place broke up our friendship. We decided 2306 number B Dwight Way was our new home. To make it fair, we changed rooms every month. Easy peasy. Rent was $82.50 each, cheaper than the $105 I paid for the basement. I was anxious. The street was noisy, the little room ugly. I resented that every month I'd have to sleep there. Were we too hasty? We visited the apartment a few more times and left with increased dread that we queens of denial avoided. We'll fix it up real homey and hang gorgeous tapestries on the wall, Jenna said as I tapped my cigarette into an ashtray at Bernini's. She scowled. Do you think we made a mistake? I shrugged. Maybe it was 4th apartment on the second day. Ayala Street, she choked and spit out her coffee. The pending move felt like falling off a cliff as I dug my nails into the cracks and held on to fantasy for dear life. Moving day, Antoine borrowed Fred's car to help. Nerves crazed as a pack of wild dogs, I packed and cleaned. Jenna was edgy too. My room was a suffocating indigo, unbearably tiny, with one pathetic miniature window that looked into someone's dining room. I couldn't wait for my turn in the big sunlit room. Jenna got it by straws. After we got our boxes and my cats moved in, we cleaned the filthy bathroom and kitchen. The refrigerator hadn't been defrosted in years. Inside was a silver metal bowl stuffed with trash. Empty beer bottles filled a cupboard. We made dinner together, chard, macaroni, and cheese. Smoked our last joint, watched some bullshit TV, got the munchies, and went to a convenience store down the block and bought 2 packages of chocolate chip cookies. Still antsy, we went out at 10:30 and drank wine at Le Bacteau. It was the second evening in the apartment. The air was stale from keeping the windows closed to block the roar of traffic. Every room was stacked with boxes we were too bummed out to unpack. Let's buy booze, Jenna said. It felt good to be outside in fresh air, striding down Telegraph Avenue. At the Gold liquor store, we bought a gallon of Mountain Red, a pint of Southern Comfort, and 2 packs of Marlboro Lights. We skipped out the store and down the sidewalk. Let's pretend we're going to visit our pathetic friends, Charlene and Maxine, I said. 2 sorry-ass nitwits who believed their perfect apartment would be found on the 4th day, second one. The words choked out in a sputter of giggles. Jenna linked her arm through mine. Their apartment is so grubby, it will take those sad fucks years to clean it. I nodded. We feel sorry for them, so we're bringing alcohol to cheer the dummies up. We sat in front of someone's house on concrete steps and took out our cigarettes, lit up and exhaled. A smile twisted Jenna's lips. You know, Rue, it will be heavy seeing them. I think we should fortify ourselves with a few nips of Southern Comfort. Great idea, Jen. They're such imbeciles, they won't even notice we broke the seal. We took several sips and smoked, immersed in how lucky we were to be Jenna and Ruth, who could leave those 2 suckers after a short visit and go back to our lovely, clean home on a quiet street with equal-sized bedrooms, laughed all the way up the steps to the front door, and fumbled with the key. The click of the lock opening startled me. We went down the long, dark hallway into the dim kitchen and stared at our boxes, heaped on the floor. In a single whoosh, the air was sucked out of us like a belly punch. The game crashed. We were the dumb fucks, Charlene and Maxine.